presidential elections, but it's not just the presidential elections, it's India during the presidential elections. What I mean to say is the US presidential candidate Donald Trump seems to be raising India bogey quite a bit. Here's the latest. India charges with a smile. The US elections are finding references to and in India. The latest is from presidential candidate Donald Trump himself, who has said that US and he have a great relationship with India and that Prime Minister Modi is a great leader. But they charge hefty when it comes to import duty. Donald Trump has claimed that he plans to make America extraordinarily wealthy again. And reciprocity is crucial to that plan. We generally don't charge tariffs. I started that process. It was so great, we really don't charge. China will charge us a 200% tariff. Brazil is a big charger. The biggest charger of all is India. So what Donald Trump is saying, US may return to India with higher taxes if this is the stand that India maintains for its own import taxes. In fact, many of you may remember the Harley-Davidson debate. Trump says when he asked Harley-Davidson about business in India, they said it's very tough. A response, he says, to a question he asked on which were the bad countries. Remember, Harley-Davidson officially exited the India market, closing its manufacturing facility and significantly downsizing its operations. The decision announced in September 2020 was driven by sluggish sales and a challenging economic environment compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's just look at some facts. What are the duties across the two countries? We look at some of them. First, the US, 188% on dairy products, 132% on fruits and vegetables, 53% on coffee, tea, cocoa, spice, 193% on cereals and food, at least 164% on oil seeds, fats and oil. In fact, 35% on fish and fish products and so on and so forth. And this is according to the WTO's World Tariff Profiles for 2023. And let's look at some soaring import tariffs in India. 150% for whiskey and wines. In fact, if we could just get that up on our screens as well. 150% for whiskey and wines. Automobile is at least 100 to 125%. Cigarettes, 150%, up to 150%. Gold and silver jewelry, similarly up to 10% is what I'm made to believe, up to 80% for agricultural product, rice, 100% for sugar, 15% for auto components, which has of course made the market extremely difficult of late as well, 20% on cell phones, and there's a list that goes on. Despite these high trade tariffs or import tariffs, when you look at an average on the import tariffs across countries, let's just look at the larger picture. 17% is an average for India, 13.4% is an average for South Korea, 7.5% is for China. And then you have 9.6% for Vietnam, Bangladesh 14.1%, and an average of 3.3% for US. So if you look at high tariffs, yes, US also has extremely high tariffs for import of goods, but there are certain select goods. So does India. But when it comes to an average, India is, of course, much higher than US. But if you're feeling lost in numbers, just give us a few minutes before we put it all in perspective with our panelists. But before that, it's not just India's high import tariffs that have found a way or a mention to US presidential poll campaigns. In fact, the former Chief Minister and Aam Aadmi Party Supremo Arvind Kejriwal, often criticized for free soaps or raveries, electricity being one such, took to the social media to say, freaky ravery reaches United States, a response to Trump's half electricity price promise ahead of the polls. Now, what do we make out of this? What's happening in the United States? Is India an inspiration anywhere behind that? Or what does trade tariffs really mean when it comes to US and India relations, possibly even the new US government? That's, of course, something that we'll have to wait for the election results. I'm being joined at this point by Vibhuti Jha, who's an ex-Republican candidate for New York Assembly, Sanjay Jha, who's an author, Arun Kumar Rai, who's with the Everfast Fret, as well as Manish Barriar, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining us. I'm sorry we came to you a little bit late. We had a breaking news and unfortunate news that was happening in the suburbs of Chennai. Vibhuti Ja, if I can come to you first, what's happening in the United States? There's lots of love and, what we are calling here Trump-Modi tariffing bromance, if that's what we can put it very lightly. There's been a great relationship between the two, but why is the flak at India suddenly?
Thank you very much for having here. It's not a flak. It's a tariff is a negotiation thing. And I'm very glad Mr. Trump used the word reciprocity, because in my shows and in my conversations, I have been demanding that the world must demand reciprocity from one another. If you want something from me, what are you going to give me? And that's what is important to establish as an equation. So you shared the whole lot of data about which country does what. And I believe that, in my personal opinion, I believe that the Trump agenda, Trump plan for Make America Great Again wraps up very well with Modi ji's plan of Make in India. So this is what is important. Whatever I import, I want to protect my domestic manufacturing ability, domestic manufacturing facilities. And every country wants to do that. And that's what is important for everybody to understand. The key element in this negotiation is the ability of India to negotiate the structure of pricing and financing. So if you remember Trump's statement, he has always said that China was smart, EU was smart in doing things vis-a-vis US because we negotiated very poorly. He did never blame China for having a great tariff superiority over the United States. Likewise, India has always been a protective industry. If you remember 1991, the Bombay Club had opposed the liberalization move because they thought that the foreign competition will destroy domestic industry. It didn't happen. So it's a very simple process.
But Vibhuti Ja, 1991 is way back, almost close to when liberalization really was being pegged into India. Seas have been crossed since then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the point which is important. So India's manufacturing heft has also improved. India wants to manufacture, sees the market and the potential between the two countries for defense purchases or varieties of products and services. Trade has quadrupled a lot. So what is important here is to be able to protect and garner manufacturing capability. MAGA plan also is about bringing back manufacturing to the United States. India's plan is also to make India a manufacturing hub. So they have both identical objectives. The question is how these two prominent economies collaborate. And that's where the reciprocity word is very critical. This is what I wanted to emphasize on that.
It's going to be also interesting to see how the Indian diaspora that can vote in US is also going to look at it. But I'll come back to that in a bit. Manish Barriar, if I can get you in. Mr. Manish Barriar, do you look eye to eye with what Mr. Vibhuti Ja has said? He's saying, listen, these two things of what Donald Trump is saying as well as what India is doing is not antithetical. They are not opposite. In fact, it's collaboration. Is that how you see it? Is that how the government in India is going to be seeing?
Yeah, good evening, Sneha ji, and to my co-panelist and to the viewers. I would humbly disagree with him. So I would like to look at, Trump's, words as moving of India's relationship from shared values to shared interests. And I feel that India-US relations now is largely bipartisan. But yes, personalities do matter. And I think last time also, if you see, when Trump came, he removed India from GSP, which was the Generalized System for Preferences. So what he's talking, I think he means it. And there are four areas I can look at between India and US where I think he's going to have an impact. One is, of course, H-1B visas. And if you look at these visas, he's going to clamp down. And Indian companies have You can see the data, Infosys to TCS, they have all started recruiting US citizens and US from US campuses. So that already happened during Trump, and it has impacted that area. And for sure, I think is going to tighten this. Then it is about US-India tariffs, and I feel that he's not just making empty rhetorical statements. He's going to definitely act, and as per his interests, and I'm sure India is also going to reciprocate on that. That India has to be ready, and I think Indian diplomatic and Indian, government is very well suited to really deal with such situations. But I think what is coming if he wins, it all depends on that. I think we should be ready for that. The third is intellectual property. He has kept talking about intellectual property, and I think he could impose stricter IP laws. And I think pharma and tech industries are going to really, they'll have to take a call on that. And the fourth is Indo-Pacific, that strategy, because he has cancelled that there is a very important 11 countries, this thing, he doesn't endorse that. I think he would focus on defense. Republicans, they are known to really push defense deals. So bilateral, I think India and US is going to do really great. But multilateral, I think it's going to suffer because he's going to demand everything if he comes. So I do not agree with him that, it's going to be just the same. I think India has to really tread a very cautious path, and we'll have to deal with him. We have dealt with him earlier, and I'm sure we'll be able to deal with this time also.
Sanjay Jha, if you can come in. We heard two opposite spectrums. But let's face the fact, Donald Trump has to win the US elections. But winning the US elections also would have direct repercussions on Indian economy as well as Indian politics. Narendra Modi and Donald Trump both have largely been seen as personalities, as heads who have been able to collaborate, work together, work their way around. Flexing his muscles as this election time, is it just about flexing the political muscles, or is there a larger concern that India's politicos have to really look at?
Good evening. I think for a lot of people in India who got very carried away, particularly from the right-wing ecosystem, when the government of Mr. Modi actually batted for Donald Trump, literally as a candidate they endorsed for the elections by saying, "Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar." This is a good moment to take a pause and a deep breath, because you're dealing with a man who is clearly very unhinged and is capable of being extremely radical in taking public positions, as long as it gives him a political windfall. Now, as far as Trump is concerned, firstly, for the sake of global sanity, I hope he doesn't win, because I would hope that Kamala Harris is triumphing in the presidential contest. Assuming, however, that Trump wins, it's possible, you never know. The truth is that America invariably will follow a policy where it sees its own self-interest. I mean, it's very clear, it may be the world's largest economy, but as you heard Mr. Jha is from India. He's now having an American passport, but he's batting for Trump. And the argument in India, whether we should have tariff or not have tariffs, etc., becomes our local problem. Now, here is where I see the contradiction. You see, if countries under Trump and under Mr. Modi, they are both very nationalist leaders. There is this new category of global leaders that plays to the domestic gallery and, the whole muscular nationalism and all making America great again and Achhe Din, etc. This is a lot of good rhetoric. It works magic with a lot of people in the electorate. The truth is that if you are going to look inward into your economy, so if America wants the jobs back, well, they should start shutting manufacturing alliances in China and Vietnam and close all these, body sweatshops and all the back office in the Silicon Valley of the East in Bengaluru. And we'll see the consequences in the American economy. They will not be able to afford the goods that they're currently able to buy. The similar problem exists with Mr. Modi. At a time when the Indian economy needs to see higher exports, for which you need more imports, Mr. Modi made a very populist slogan, which a lot of people bought into without understanding the economic ridiculousness of it, when he said, Atmanirbhar. Suddenly everybody was like, oh my God, what a eureka breakthrough by Narendra Modi. They called it Modi economics, etc., etc. I mean, that's honestly preposterous because that is like going back from 1991 to saying we'll put more tariffs, we'll make it difficult to get goods into India. And invariably, I will tell you what happens. When you increase the tariff, you'll find a countervailing measure from the country where the tariffs are being imposed on. So I think the reality of the global trade today is that you got to work in a more competitive system. You know, the argument that you have high tariffs is normally meant to protect your domestic industry, to create your own manufacturing. Look at the disaster that Mr. Modi's Make in India has been. India's manufacturing as a component of your GDP is down from 18% to nearly 13%. Make in India is one of the biggest, I would say, the right word would be a fraud, the way it has been presented and the failure that it has been. Indian manufacturing is struggling, and the whole China plus one policy hasn't worked in India's favor. More manufacturing is actually now going to Vietnam and other parts of Southeast Asia. So the bottom line to your question is this. Let me stop here because I don't want to get carried away, that America will look at its own interest, and they have every right to do so. India needs to look at it too. But is Indian tariff high? Absolutely, can't be denied. Will we get bulldozed or bullied by America? Well, you know, end of day, America is a big economy. It has the clout, and it can't do that to you unless your political leadership stands up. So I think a turbulent time ahead, and we must recognize there are no friends. Donald Trump, Mr. Modi may have tried to get him votes, but Donald Trump is no friend of India. Remember, he's a man who said, I want to intervene in the Kashmir issue.
Okay. All right. Let me just get in responses to that. Right. And Vibhuti Jha, as well as Arun Kumar, give me a few moments. Let me just very quickly go across to Manish Barriar at this point. Manish Barriar, you heard Sanjay Jha. Vibhuti Jha earlier said that, listen, these are not two diametrically opposite narratives. What India wants, what US wants are very much coexistent. Sanjay Jha saying, listen, what US is doing, what Donald Trump is saying is something that US can definitely do and is a fallout of what he says, the fraud of Make in India or Atmanirbhar, as it has been propounded by the right-wing ecosystem. How would you respond to something like that?
No, I think I would reject Mr. Sanjay Jha's, very faulty wisdom, which I don't know from where he brings it. I think it is a right of every country to really be self-sustaining. And we had some very bad experiences in the past because we could not manufacture. That is one. And second, is it wrong on the country's part to really be self-reliant as far as manufacturing is concerned? Right. He also misses the fact that the world of 90s and world of 2000s are no more the same. Things have changed. If you look at all over the world, it's no more the the positive WTO world which used to exist in 1990s, and people used to talk about barriers being broken. The same kind of trade barriers and trade tariffs have already come. Look at Europe. The way Europe is now, no more a European Union. So you have a couple of countries opting out. You have Britain coming out of it. So I think the current realities are very different from those utopian eras where world was is going to be one economy and one global village. No more. Every country looks at its own self-interest. And I think he has been too harsh on Mr. Modi on trying something. And we can see the results. I think numbers sometimes do not give you a correct picture. So I'm not aware if India's manufacturing has now become 13% of this. So I won't contest that because I need to look at those numbers. But I'm sure that Indian economy has also grown. So let's take up if it was 18%, just for the sake of that, it was 18%, it has come down to 13%. Effectively, absolute value terms, I'm sure it would have gone up because India's GDP is now growing up by 6 to 7% every year. So, absolute terms, it would not have gone down. So, to say that it has been a failure, I would contest that. You can see that, iPhones being made in India, government is trying very hard for semiconductors chips to be done here. And we have seen some partial success in that. It's not so easy. So I think these are current, steps that government of India has taken.
Very quick response.
That has been
Sanjay Jha, very quick response.
So he has been very
I think that argument that argument that the gentleman has put up that the percentages have gone down, the absolutes have gone up, is so economically irrational, is to say that way India's GDP will keep growing in absolute terms. The answer, my dear friend, is always in relative percentages. I think you have completely got the argument wrong. And don't try and mislead the viewers. Respect the viewers. Anyway, let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. Let me finish. The larger point that cannot be denied, that in India, private capex has not been good enough. The reason why the government capital expenditure has been high is because the private investment wasn't coming on its own. And here is an attempt by the government to try and therefore increase its numbers by trying to hope that by investing in infrastructure, there will be some force multiplier effect. It hasn't created jobs. My dear Manish, whatever your name is, if India's manufacturing was doing good, India would not be facing the worst job crisis in its existence.
Yeah, ji, I would dispute
Vibhuti
that.
Jha, if you could come
private investment is something which is not in the hand of government. But what is in the hand of government is public investment. And everybody knows that India's GDP has been one of the highest in the world.
Okay, at that point, let me just get in Vibhuti Jha. Vibhuti Jha, the panelists here saying US is being very quick to look at the countries which are charging higher import tariffs without fixing what could be fixed within the country.
Absolutely. The whole issue here is, I want to just contest Sanjay Jha's point of calling Mr. Modi's plan as fraudulent. Is shameful for a party that has been fraudulently dealing with the Indian Republic and Indian people, from Garibi Hatao to all the scams that they have imposed, is calling other person as fraudulent. So I think the person who has been fired by his own party for trying to lecture and advise need not comment upon somebody else's good intentions. So having said that, I want to also talk about this element, that United States can fix the problem. US is the largest economy in the world. And I have often said that United States is currently, as my belief, is embroiled in too many engagements overseas. Their ability to print notes is restricted at the trillions of dollars worth of debts. So US has to manage its economy much better than it is doing right now. The people are really fed up and angry. This election, Trump will win or not, I do not know as of now. But what is indeed happening is that yesterday, New York Post carried an article that New York City will need 15,000 hotel rooms at the rate of $392 per day to accommodate illegal people, and plus maintenance, management, food, and every bill. This has angered the people of New York City. It has angered the people all over the country that we are tight on our own budget, trillions of dollars, and we are pumping money to Ukraine and others, and we need to make a sacrifice for that. People are really upset. So I'm a believer of this fact that the political system in the US can come to terms with one single element, that we shall not do anything to hurt the country. This country will survive, because this country is not a single product country. It is 3 times larger than India, Alaska, and Hawaii included. It is hugely resource-rich country. It has a great infrastructure in place. The only thing that is happening in this country, that both political parties are at loggerheads with their agendas and plans. And that I'm saying as a Republican, that we also need to tighten the belt. And that's where the Republican Party is talking about, is that unless and until we rein in our unlimited expenses, which the Democratic Party is famous for, the freebies that they offer, all the things
we're running short on time.
They offer, that's exactly the problem that we want to curb.
Sanjay Jha, you have a right to respond 30 seconds because Arun Kumar Rai has been waiting very patiently. Sanjay Jha. A minute, max.
I'll keep my answer very brief. The hypocrisy of the Republican candidate from the United States, Mr. Jha, is actually trying to, kind of kill two birds with one stone. But basically, he's selling the American story. This is the problem. You want to be a nationalist as far as the Indian politics is concerned, but basically he represents the economic policies of America, where Trump is literally threatening India. He's literally threatening India that I will increase my tariff barriers and dampen Indian exports. And I think this is a warning to every bhakt in this country. This is what you'll get because America chases money. And Mr. Jha's duplicitous statements are a manifestation of the dangers of embracing Trump economy.
If I may interject here, very simply put, there is no duplicitous behavior.
Yes, I knew it. I knew it. Please go ahead quickly.
I'm right of center. And what I'm trying to say here is that every country has a right to pursue its own policy. US-China relationship did not go into the dumps because Trump imposed the tariffs. Democratic Party, though criticizing Trump at the same time, are still maintaining those tariffs.
Okay, all right.
Why didn't they remove it? So the issue here is very important. Self-preservation and your agenda. Of course, you have to push your agenda. Each one negotiates, and that's why the word reciprocity.
Let me just get in Arun Kumar Rai. Apologies. Let me just get in Arun Kumar Rai at this point. Arun Kumar, how do you look at this between the entire politics and what seems to be the back and forth between two countries? One that has going into elections, one has just finished elections. There are state elections that are going to come in. Maharashtra, of course, has huge, it will have resonance with Maharashtra as well because of the manufacturing and the production and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I want to ask you as somebody who's part of this industry, how do you look at the tariff rates that India imposes? Is it exceptionally high? How does India look at it? How do various sectors across the industries look at it?
Yeah, good evening. Of course, there are a few commodities wherein India imposes a bit higher duties or tariffs. But there is a reason, and everyone knows the reason, that it's to protect the domestic industry, employment, and number of other things. Per se, wine and whiskey and automobiles, these are the two sectors wherein US feels that they are being hit below the belt. But as when you started, you had also highlighted number of commodities wherein the US also imposes higher tariffs to protect their domestic producers. So, and I think it's fair for countries imposing higher tariffs because they have their own interests, and going by that.
So, are you? I mean, is it going to be a cause of concern for you? Is it going to be a cause of concern for you and those who are part of this industry in India?
See, I mean, the worrisome players would be the exporters to US, right? As Mr. Manish highlighted, recent past, the generalized system of preference was revoked by US. So those things were carried out. I mean, it didn't have much of effect because it's ultimately what I want as a consumer. If they impose the duties, ultimately things which are easily earned, easily available and at a lower price would be expensive. So ultimately that need to be considered. And as far as India is concerned, I mean, we have been very clear about our tariff policies for automobiles. You want your product, come and make in India, right? And then recently, Government of India gave that leverage to Tesla. Right, there were certain conditions agreed upon, and you come make here, and there are certain conditions, like $500 million investment, and within 3 years you have to produce here, and the rate of duty is 15%. Whereas for other cars and all, certain valuation, the duty is 100%, and I mean, say $40,000 US, and if the value is lower than that, the duty is 60%. So India is giving a level playing field. So one should not have that sort of complaint. And I mean, if I'm allowed to say...
all right, I get your point. Let me just give, say, 40 seconds each to Manish Barriar as well as Vibhuti Jha. Manish Barriar, very quickly, for what Trump has announced, he has a huge support among the Indian diaspora the NRI diaspora that is in the United States, that is settled in the United States over the period of time, and so does Narendra Modi. So a statement such as this, that goes on to say that Narendra Modi is a great man, he's a great friend, and US and India have great ties, but goes on to say that there's going to be reciprocity, India charges the heftiest, India charges with a smile, so on and so forth. How is it going to impact the voters, particularly those with connect to India? First to you, Manish Barriar, and then Vibhuti Jha.
So, Sneha, this is not the first time that prospective, presidential candidate has really talked like this. If you remember, Obama also spoke a lot about Bangalore at one period of time. So these are election rhetoric. And I think US is as polarized as India right now. So that way, I don't think it's going to really make a difference. He's speaking to his electorate and whoever has to vote the way. And interestingly, the Indians in US are essentially left the center because immigration and H-1B policies and all these things. So when I speak to my US friends, they are not such a big Trump supporter. There are a lot of them are Democrats, although Mr. Jha would like to, both Mr. Jhas would like to contest for their own reasons. But I don't think it's going to really make a difference when it comes to their choices as such. I feel that he's speaking more to the electorate inside US.
Thank you. This is Manishji is right. Majority of the Indians vote Democrats. More than 80% vote for Democrats because they live in blue states: New York, California, New Jersey, Connecticut, Washington. These are all blue states, so they are prosperous. It's good to be part of the winning team, ideologies apart. What is happening on the Indian mindset today is, and which has made home, is that every single anti-India, anti-Hindu agenda, the resolutions, rules, SB 403, AB 1047, attempt to declare swastika as a hate symbol, or dismantling Hindutva agenda, they have all been initiated, plotted, planned, and executed in Democrat-run states. And now Indians are awakening to that reality.
Okay, I think you very cleverly brought in a whole lot of other aspects rather than what we are debating. But allow me to very quickly get in Sanjay Jha as well. Sanjay Jha, my last question to you, and I'll have to wrap after this, so a minute max. Sanjay Jha, we saw what happened in other countries as well, neighboring countries as well. There was rhetoric during elections, India out, and we don't want tourists from India, and so on and so forth. There was a huge political furor. Once the elections get over, it's back to normal. Diplomacy is at its best. Is this something to be seen of what's happening in US, what's been said, something in the similar tone?
No, I agree there with what Manish mentioned earlier. This is a period of hyperbole in political messaging. Everyone plays to their domestic gallery because Mr. Trump is running a very close contest against Kamala Harris, and all the swing states will decide that. You never know, the next president might be winning by just 20,000 votes in one swing state. I think the larger issue is that the Indian economy hasn't delivered. I need to say this bluntly because everyone keeps talking about that, we are the fastest growing economy, but look at our base. We're just 3.75 trillion economy. A 7% growth is nothing at all. So I think the bottom line is we haven't grown. Our manufacturing has actually decelerated. We have a challenge. And if we don't grow, America will bulldoze you. They will.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, unfortunately, that can't be the last word. Quite honestly, in any debate, I had to get in the other side, but I'm totally out of time. Vibhuti Jha, Sanjay Jha, Arun Kumar, as well as Manish Barriar, thank you for your time. But as I said, I'm sure this is not the last time we are hearing of this. There are still days and some very tightened, hyper campaign days left for US. Impact with India, possibly very clearly visible. Thank you very much for joining us.